Wrap up Friday, the Conservative Party has broken a political bridge record. Truss announced her plans to resign, serving 45 days as a Prime Minister, which is the shortest serving Prime Minister governance in British history. Although the general public demands a general election, the Conservative Party announced that they will organize a bailout and replace Truss with a new unelected Prime Minister. The Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee increased the bank base interest rate from 1.75% to 2.25%. The bank rate is important because it's the main interest rate in the UK. It also influences other types of interest rates in the economy. The 0.5% increase in bank rates essentially affects savings and borrowing as well. The Conservative Party cancelled the incoherent mini-budget. The UK's mini-budget U-turn was well received by the IMF, stating that the U-turn better aligned fiscal and monetary policy in order to reduce inflation. It's important to point out that tax cut implementation would increase inequality, interest rates, and inflation. Although the new British Chancellor cancelled the mini-budget in which, in the short term, stabilized the pound and reduced government debt, the British economy is far away from being economically stable. Despite suffering from consequences of extreme weather patterns caused by global warming, African economies are doing relatively well. The African continent is becoming a bigger player in the global economy. The African economy is expected to reach over $29 trillion by 2050. Africa is rich in natural resources, powered by trade and agriculture. The region has a young, techie, savvy-friendly workforce. Every day, more than 100,000 people living in Africa gain access to the internet for the first time, offering great opportunities for investment. According to the IMF, the top richest African countries by overall GDP are Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, Algeria, Morocco, Ethiopia, Kenya, Angola, Ghana, and Sudan. According to the World Bank, the wealthiest African countries by GDP per capita are Seychelles, Mauritius, Equatorial Guinea, Botswana, Libya, Gabon, South Africa, Egypt, Algeria, and Tunisia. One would argue that Niger and Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, Rwanda economies have huge potential for growth, being the underdogs in Africa. In less than 10 days, Brazil will hold its most important presidential election in a generation. Brazilian elections tend to be polarized. However, political candidates used to respect each other. Bolsonaro is the first ever Brazilian president to openly encourage violence against his political opponents. The Observatory of Political and Electoral Violence in Brazil has recorded more than 215 cases of politically motivated crimes in 2022, in which 45 of those cases were assassinations. The victims were elected officials, candidates, and public employees, which is a 25% increase from 2020. The world is watching Brazil carefully, as the general election outcome will impact global trade, democracy, and climate change. Brazil has been facing a threat called democratic rupture. Bolsonaro will not obey with the result of Brazil's runoff presidential election. Brazil's electronic voting system is an effective electronic voting system implemented since 1996. There has been no systematic fraud recorded. However, Bolsonaro claims that if he loses the election, this is a result of electoral fraud. The fact is that he has no evidence to support his voting fraud argument. Lula stands for trade union, increase the rainforest Amazon protection, eradicating hunger, and strengthening income transfer programs, promoting multilateral international policy in regional leadership. Bolsonaro is a right-wing populist, former army captain, backbench politician, made a long-term pension reform, and promises to continue reforming the Brazilian state. He promised to battle gender ideology, government based on Christian principles, and facilitate access to weapons for ordinary citizens. Brazil is a major international player, which is even more evident among the BRICS and South America. Brazil is a superpower, and Brazilians know it. The result of the runoff general election on the upcoming 31st of October matters.